What is up, Rad Potential YouTube? Are you guys ready to learn about every mistake that I've made so that you don't have to make them? That's what we're going to talk about in this video. Using this engine that we've had to rebuild 3 times because we made mistakes putting it together. And I say we made mistakes. We've done everything in our power to not make mistakes. We've learned a ton. But every now and again, you find things or parts that you've bought or this, that, and the other that just don't work like you thought they would, or things have changed in the manufacturing process and they just aren't the same anymore. So we're going to stack this engine up and we're going to talk through everything about putting an engine together from the side of everything I've messed up instead of this is how you do it the right way, right? So first things first, get your front iron on there, get it clean, make sure you have everything clean. Make sure you have all this stuff cleaned and laid out. I have a little checklist in my head that I go through with this. I could probably write it down. Maybe I'll type it on the screen. Maybe I won't. But make sure you have everything. Oil pump bolts, the front keyway, rear stationary gear bolts, the right, or make sure you check your in-play. This spacer, 2 Torrington bearings. You should douse these in oil. Make sure they're well lubricated. If you have an REW, this doesn't do anything, but you need the timing gear. Oil pump pickup. Make sure there's no crap in it. This thing, the front counterweight, there's a washer in here as well. You need this guy, the front pulley. Dowels. Tip for the dowels, guys. First tip of the video. Make sure these are clean, and as you build your engine, make sure that they fit all the way in. There's no crap in here. There's no crap on here. Make sure they go all the way through the housing like butter. If you have to hammer these in, that is wrong. Don't hammer these in. Clean your dowels. Front cover bolts, a clean E-shaft, tension bolts. Make sure you've got your dowel pin O-rings. Make sure you know what style of front cover gasket you're going to use. Rotors. We'll talk rotors real quick. I build my rotors outside of the engine. Some people build their rotors as they build the engine. They put the rotor in with one face of stuff on it, and then they build the other face, and then they do their thing. I like to fully assemble my rotor. It's like a checklist item I do the night before I'm going to stack the engine, because I want to make sure that this is a very important piece to make sure all these tolerances are correct, the seals are straight, this, that, and the other. The second thing you should do on your rotors, mad tip, and I'll do this a bunch of times in the video, make sure your corner seals and corner seal springs are straight. Because when you go to put this apex seal in there and it gets stuck on that, that's not fun. The other thing, I don't build my engines with the apex seals rubber banded into the rotor. I have seen people do that. I don't do that. And I don't really know why I don't do that. Maybe just because this is the way that I do it and it works for me. I've never honestly tried it that way. So comment below if you think that that's the easiest way or you like to do it that way, because I'm open to trying it. Keep all your stuff organized. You've seen in the rebuild, this, that, and the other videos. Do that. Lay out all your seals, coolant seals. Just make sure that you have everything. Check off all the boxes. You know what it takes to put these engines together if you go watch my comprehensive rebuild video. All the details. So let's get going, and I'll talk you through all the issues that I've had building these engines so that you don't have to make the same mistakes as me. Let's get to it.
And it's deeper on the front. So the dead giveaway is...
Alright guys, a very, 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 very important thing to not mess up is you can build your engine with your E-shaft in backwards. You can put this in the wrong way and the whole rest of the engine will fit, and then you'll find out at the very end that you did it wrong. I'll insert the clip. Also, the reason to put the E-shaft in right now, or at least why I like to do it right now, is this holds the rotor in place, so when you go to put the housing on, everything just is all hunky-dory, and the corner seals don't have an opportunity to move before you get the apex seals in there. You will need to do, and I'll show you this, a funky little dance to get the center iron over the E-shaft. Once you know that you've got your coolant seals in the center iron and they're not going to fall out, you've got your dowel pin O-ring on, you have your apex seal corners in, You have your corner seals, all this like rotor stuff assembled. Your E-shaft is in the correct direction. This is your last chance to change the E-shaft direction. You've got your dowel pins in. You got your silicone on your little legs of the housings here. You're ready to put the center iron on. Now, this is a chore to do by yourself. It really sucks, and it really helps to have somebody here to help you with it. We don't got that. So we're doing this alone. You're going to see me use my knee on the bottom of the E-shaft to effectively lift it up. Okay, we're going to lift the E-shaft up about halfway up the rotor's bearing. Then we're going to put this thing on here, and we got to cock the iron so that it can make it around the corner of the E-shaft. You might have to go up a little higher there. Come on. Oh, shit. Okay, well, we're on it anyways. I fell out of the bearing in the iron. Come on. Don't fall in really hard, please. Okay. Now, since we just made a whole bunch of racket, alright, in the engine, i.e. we shocked stuff, this is where you need to go and you need to look down inside this crack, okay? Make sure the coolant seals didn't fall out of the iron. Make sure your rotor corners didn't pop up. Make sure your corner seals didn't pop out. Make sure that nothing is awry, because when you push this down, that is ideally the final time you see your front rotor. So let's check. Typically what happens right now is those little corner pieces will pop up. And if you glue your apex seals together, you won't have that problem. So you just want to be sure and check this, because this is what happened with the first time we put this together. These little corners popped up, which was less than ideal. So now once you've got that done, you're ready to turn this so the dowels line up and set this thing down on your engine nice and slow. Oh yeah, okay. Now, if you're Mazda, they have super sweet clamps that they clamp all this together with, which is why some of these little nubs are on here as they clamp everything down. I don't have that ability yet, although I would like to have that ability. Alright, now we're ready for the rear rotor, coolant seals, next bits. Whoa. Alright, next tip. 17mm deep well socket will put your dowel O-ring over the dowel. Instead of fighting it with your fingers all the way around, spin that guy right off. Dowel pin O-ring installed. Last thing here. These corners, they like to pop up. Make sure that they're not popped up. Also, pro tip, don't drop anything down into the coolant jacket. It just sucks. That's the only way to put it. Don't forget your silicone. Other than that, guys, these engines are really simple. Now, here's another couple things that I've taken these engines apart, like built them and then had to take them back apart for. Okay? The first one, obviously this one, oil control rings suck. I don't know why I know why, because they were cheaper, but OEM Mazda, all the way, they go right in by hand, super good. Don't put your oil control rings in wrong. Another thing, these oil control rings caused me to put this engine together, and these little corner pieces popped up because the oil control rings are sticking out too far. And when I torqued it down, they were popped up, and it crimped them between the edge of the housing and the irons. Not good. Go check out that video. I put a 12A together with the E-shaft in backwards. That was really fun. That was like 2.5 years ago. The other thing, this engine has them, and it's honestly pretty good as far as compression. It was making like 85 to 90 psi compression before. We'll check it again after this. But solid corner seals. I built a 12A with solid corner seals. It made 70 psi of compression. I took the engine apart, put OEM Mazda corner seals in it, and it made 100 psi compression. So you're talking that much of a difference just from solid corner seals. If you're going to be hard on your engine, if you want to run it hot, we're worried about cracking corner seals, then run solid ones. But I can tell you this much, that there is a definite loss of compression with solid corner seals because they do not fit that tight in the rotors. They wiggle around. So I had to take an engine apart because of that. I've never had issues with water jacket seals. I've never had issues with oil leaks, in between the stack. I've never really excessively had bearing issues either. Now I've taken engines apart that have had bearing issues, but I've never had a major bearing failure myself. Keep oil in it and you'd be good to go. That's pretty much it. The other thing, and this is not my actual thing, but a thing to teach you guys, is that on an RX-8 engine, if you're going to rebuild one of those, they have tapered side seals. And if you put the engine together and your side seal clearance is too tight, it'll actually block the engine up, because with the taper, it'll push on everything and it won't allow the side seal to fit in all the way, and then you won't be able to turn your engine. The other thing that you should note is that you can, and this is more so for the old school people, or if you have multiple engines apart. If you have multiple engines apart in your shop, dog's got a cricket. If you have multiple engines apart in your shop and you go to put an engine together, you can mix up the stationary gears. It would be very hard, but Charles and I built an engine a long time ago, and we thought we had 12A stationary gears in our engine, but in fact they were 13B stationary gears, and that locked our engine up. Now, we figured it out when we took the stack gears out and tried to turn the engine over, and it turned over, and then we were able to figure that out that way. Otherwise, guys, these things are super easy. I've in the process of building them, have been oh shoot, I forgot my dowel pin O-ring, and then not had the housing on all the way. I've never forgot a rotor seal because I built them the day before. Typically, I'm super detailed about making sure I get my oil control rings in the correct direction. I have it on the wall over there, how to put them in the right way. So, among other things, that's just about it. This is ready for RTV and the last bit. Oh, pro tip. Don't build an engine without this O-ring on the back of your stationary gear. You will think that you have a rear main seal leak, and you'll replace your rear main seal twice in the car before you figure out that it's leaking from behind the stationary gear. Ask me how I know. Also, when you're putting the stationary gear in, you should not have to turn everything. It should just maybe with a slight wiggle back and forth line up. If it doesn't, that means you've got your rotors too far off of center. The front rotor, I always point up, and the back rotor, I always put down. You can do that in the opposite. You could point the front rotor down, the back rotor up, just as long as they're opposite 180 degrees of each other. Feels good. What's the ultimate number? Does it take more than 15 foot-pounds to turn this thing over? No, it does not. How about that? Okay, so you might be like, what the heck? Why is he measuring the torque that it takes to turn an engine over? Well, because this engine has been such a pain in my butt, and I've pulled it back apart 3 times. The first time I put it together, it had a little hang up in it. Whereas I could feel it, something was grabbing. So, I hit up all my Rotary friends and said, hey, how hard is it to turn over one of your engines? Does this engine just make good compression, or is it broken? And the reoccurring torque number on the front of an engine was max 15 foot-pounds. So, right here, 15 foot-pounds on the torque wrench, you can see that I'm not breaking the torque on the torque wrench. So, engine, good. The end of this video, which is a very long video for the camera. Not a very long video for you guys. And it has taken me a very long time to learn all this stuff. We're done stacking this engine. We're done with the hard parts. We're done with the parts that have an excessive amount of risk that if you do mess something up, you have to take your engine back apart. Now, the last check, which I can do, I guess, for you guys here real quick. I think I have everything in here. Yep. Is coolant pressure. And I guess I'm going to do this in the morning or tomorrow because it's late and I have to go to work. So this is what's called a coolant passage pressure tester here. This device goes on the front of your engine like so. Okay, and you bolt this thing on here. It's got a gauge. You put air pressure in this, and you test to make sure that the coolant jacket around your engine can hold. I see people run 25 psi, 20 psi, whatever. I run 20 psi. I put 20 psi of pressure on this gauge, let it sit for an hour and a half. As long as it still has 20 psi pressure on it after an hour, you're good, and you don't have a coolant pressure leak. The other part of this is make sure you cap off that part right there. There's a coolant temperature sensor down here, and then this port, which has been blocked off on this engine, would also have a coolant passage deal on it. In addition, if you have like an early 12A or something, there's going to be a hole in your housings here. Same with some of the FC13Bs. The T2 models recirculate coolant through the intake manifold then to the turbo. So make sure that you have those blocked off as well. Otherwise, obviously, you'll have a huge coolant leak. But what this is basically, it's like doing a head gasket test. Proves to make sure that everything is good. The other bit, which you've seen me use this a bunch on the channel as well, and this is pretty normal, but if you've never built one of these before and you want to learn, you're doing stuff, you don't need to go out and buy a rotary compression tester if you're only rebuilding your own engine. There's no sense in spending the money for that. Now, if you do buy one, you can offer the service to people and like go compression test people's engines if you want, but rotary compression tester, compression test your engine, make sure it's good. The easy way to do it, the way that I've done it for a really long time until I got the compression tester, thank you Charles, is if you have your ratchet and you turn your engine over, 1, 2 on the front rotor, 3, 4, 5, 6, you should hear 6 equal sounding pulses. If you hear 6 pulses that sound largely the same, you're pretty much good. If you have a pulse that is like dead, or if you can put a starter on this and crank it and you have whoosh, 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 and you're hearing a miss, like a, what do I want to call it? I'm forgetting the word. But basically you don't have a rhythm of the pulses and you have a gap, that means you probably have a dead face or 2 dead faces. So one way to check your compression, tips and tricks from Mr. Rad himself. So with that, guys, this engine is done. And I'm not going to bore you with dressing up the front end and putting all that stuff on. That stuff's super easy. Make sure everything's clean. Put it all in the right place. If you need information on how to put your front stack together, do this. Oh yeah, here's another good. We'll just talk through my blown up engines on the front stack. The timing gear on your engine, if you have an old school 13B, guys, this matters. There is an edge that is chamfered. Can you see that edge there? The cut chamfered edge of the inside of this gear, right in there. Notice how the other side of it is not chamfered, it's a sharp edge. The chamfered side of the gear goes towards the engine block, okay? So chamfered side towards the front of the engine, like towards the front iron. 91 and earlier. You want to know why it's 91 and earlier? Because on an FD, that thing is only there to space your in-play, and on an RX-8, that thing is only there to space your in-play. Nothing actually touches that gear. On an early car, an FC, any car with a distributor, that gear drives your timing. If you put that gear on backwards, your timing is going to be about 5 degrees, 10 degrees off. You're going to have a real hard time stabbing your distributor because top dead center is not going to line up with the gear. If you do that and you get it right, you get it close, and then you go beat on your rally car in your front yard and drive the heck out of it, it'll detonate and it'll crack a apex seal and you'll break one. So I've done that before. Don't do that. The other thing to note as well with the front stack, Torrington bearings. This one is crushed, as in crushed very nicely. If you do not get your Torrington bearings seated properly, they fit around your in-play spacer. There's one under this plate, one above it. They fit around it. They do not get smashed by the in-play spacer. If they do, your engine will burn up really fast. Don't do that. Now, I haven't done that, but I have crimped a Torrington bearing and then checked my in-play and not had in-play and ruined the bearing, which is that one. So, otherwise, guys, like I said 4 minutes ago, it's done. I'm ready for bed. It's super late. I've got a bunch of parts ordered for the RX-8 that are coming this week, i.e., I don't think I got the box today, but they should be here tomorrow. And we're going to be fabricating up a cold air intake for this car. We've got a relocated battery kit coming for this car. And then I've got some plastic sheets from Home Depot. And I'm going to be making a new front under tray and building some ductwork for the oil coolers. So get fired up for that because this car goes to the track at the end of the month. And then also, which after the RX-8 content, we breeze through getting this thing ready to go. I still have to fix my fuel leak and stuff too, so don't worry, we're fixing that. Also, get amped because this is a brand new engine. We're going to tear it out of this box, compression test it, and see how good a brand new engine is. So get fired up for all that. With that, thank you guys very much for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video. Keep it rad. Drop your comments below. Anything you guys want to learn or see or anything about these engines, cars, whatever, what have you, RX-8 stuff, let me know what you want to see, and I'll make sure to get it in the next video. Peace, guys. Keep it rad. Alright, well, the dog's taking too long, so we'll just outro this by herself. She's out chasing a rabbit in the dark or something like that. There's always a solution to every problem, and I'm here to find it. Peace.